In the year 1758, a blazing comet burned its way across the Hawaiian sky like a blade of fire. To the people of Hawaii, this was not just a natural wonder, it was a message from the gods. Priests whispered that the heavens were announcing the birth of a mighty ruler, a warrior who would one day overthrow chiefs and rule the islands as one. The reigning king of Hawaii Island, Alapai, took this omen seriously. When he learned that his niece had given birth to a son shortly after the comet appeared, fear clenched his heart. If this child truly carried destiny, then he was a threat from the moment he drew his first breath. Alapai ordered the infant hunted down and destroyed, but fate had already chosen its champion. The baby was smuggled into the mountains under cover of darkness and raised in isolation, far from the politics and blood of the royal court. For years he lived as a hidden child, growing among cliffs and mist, learning the hard lessons of survival before he could even speak them aloud. When he was finally rediscovered at the age of 5, the child returned not as a fragile boy, but as something different. Quiet, observant, hardened. He received a new name, Kamehameha, meaning the Lonely One. It was a name carved from loss and also from promise, forged into a warrior. Kamehameha's life changed when his uncle Kalaniʻopuʻu rose to power. The boy was brought into the royal household and trained as a warrior, surrounded by chiefs and knights of Hawaiian warfare. This was no gentle education. Hawaiian combat was savage and direct. Warriors trained with spears, clubs, and cruel shark-tooth daggers that tore flesh like living saws. Honor was earned in battle, and chiefs ruled through strength as much as lineage. By his teenage years, Kamehameha was already a giant among men, not just in height, but in presence. There was something unnerving about how he observed others, calculating movements like a seasoned hunter. Elders spoke quietly of his mana, the spiritual force believed to power great leaders. Then came the moment that transformed him from boy to legend. Near a sacred temple rested the Naha Stone, a massive volcanic rock said to bless any man who could lift it with the right to unite the islands. Powerful chiefs across generations had failed. Kamehameha walked to the stone and lifted it. Suddenly, rumor became certainty. The prophecy child was no longer a whisper. He was alive. The day gods arrived by sea. In 1779, strange ships sailed into Kealakekua Bay. Their white sails towered over canoes like floating mountains. At their head was Captain James Cook, a British explorer unknowingly drifting into sacred legend. The ships arrived during Makahiki, the season dedicated to Lono, the Hawaiian god of peace and harvest. The masts, the sails, and the white banners matched old descriptions whispered in chants and myths. The Hawaiians believed the impossible. Lono had returned. Cook was welcomed as a living god. Chiefs bowed. Food was piled high. Feast filled the beaches. For weeks, Cook and his men lived as royalty. Then they left, and then they came back. Makahiki had ended. Gods do not return twice. Suspicion grew quickly. When Cook attempted to take the Hawaiian king hostage after a stolen boat incident, the illusion collapsed. Spears met guns, stones met bullets, and there on the beach of Kealakekua, the god bled. Cook was beaten, stabbed, and killed by the very people who once worshipped him. Kamehameha watched, and he learned. These foreigners carried terrifying power. If one army returned with these weapons, the islands would be crushed unless they stood together. From that day forward, unity became his obsession. A kingdom divided. When Kalaniʻopuʻu died, his son inherited the throne, but Kamehameha received custody of Ku, the god of war. In Hawaiian tradition, that role carried immense authority. 5 warrior chiefs pledged loyalty to Kamehameha. Civil war followed. Across volcanic fields and jungles, cousins turned into enemies. Entire villages emptied. Sacred grounds flooded with blood. Kamehameha won critical battles, but could not deliver a finishing blow. For nearly 10 years, Hawaii burned, until destiny arrived once more. On American sails, the strangers who changed everything. 2 trading ships arrived in 1790. Their commander, Simon Metcalf, would become infamous after luring villagers aboard his ship and firing cannons into unarmed crowds in Maui. 200 Hawaiians were killed, but Karma sailed faster than any ship. Metcalf's son later anchored near Kamehameha's territory. Local warriors boarded his vessel, seized its weapons, and slaughtered his crew. 2 survivors remained, John Young and Isaac Davis. Instead of killing them, Kamehameha did something audacious. He kept them. The 2 foreigners taught Kamehameha's men how to fire muskets, aim cannons, clean barrels, and wage war the Western way. Traditional warriors with ancient weapons now trained alongside artillery and rifles. Hawaii's wars would never be the same. The battle that turned rivers red. Armed with guns, Kamehameha attacked Maui in 1790. For days, warriors clashed in savage combat. Spears cracked against shields, clubs shattered skulls. Then, cannons spoke. Cannonballs tore open human lines. Muskets echoed across valleys. When the enemy was driven into a narrow ravine by a river, slaughter followed like a flood. Bodies piled so high that the water slowed. The Hawaiians would forever remember it as the damming of the waters. Maui fell, when the earth chose its king. Returning to Hawaii Island, Kamehameha pursued his rival one last time. As the enemy fled across barren volcanic land, nature itself rose to finish the war. The earth split open, lava surged, poison gas rolled through camps like fog. Entire armies died without a single blade being drawn. For many, this was not coincidence. Pele, goddess of fire, had crowned her king. One battle to rule them all. By 1795, Kamehameha launched his final campaign, the invasion of Oahu. 10,000 warriors stormed the beaches. Using European battle tactics and Hawaiian fury, his armies crushed resistance. Survivors fled into mountain passes, and Kamehameha cornered them at sheer cliffs. Desperate men leapt to their deaths. Centuries later, skulls would still be discovered at the bases of those cliffs. Oahu fell. Maui was gone. Hawaii was his. Only Kauai remained, the king who chose peace. Twice Kamehameha attempted to invade Kauai, and twice the sea itself rose against him, smashing his fleets with storms and crippling his armies with disease before they could ever reach the shore, as if the islands themselves refused to be united in blood. At last, the greatest victory came not through blades, cannon, or prophecy, but through restraint and wisdom, when the king of Kauai chose surrender over slaughter and placed his island under Kamehameha's rule peacefully. And in that moment, Hawaii became one kingdom not by force or fear, but by patience, proving that the strongest hand a ruler can raise is sometimes the one he chooses not to strike with. The kingdom that endured. Kamehameha enforced peace across the islands where war had once been a constant shadow, reopening trade routes, stabilizing communities, and transforming chaos into order, with firm, deliberate rule, until foreign nations no longer saw him as a tribal warlord but recognized him as a sovereign monarch, a king among kings. His dynasty endured for generations, and even when the Hawaiian monarchy was illegally overthrown in 1893, the soul of the kingdom did not disappear, because rulers like Kamehameha do not fade into silence. They echo through time, in song, in story, and in stone. His statues still rise toward the sky, island festivals still speak his name, and across oceans and decades his legend survives, not as a boy born beneath a comet, but as the king who bent destiny itself to his will. And if this epic story of Kamehameha the Great moved you, inspired you, or taught you something new, don't forget to hit that like and make sure to subscribe. Let us know in the comments which part of Kamehameha's journey impressed you the most, and who you'd like to see featured next.